All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and the holidays are over. We're in that time in between Christmas and New Year's. I'm joined by my co-host, the man who's on a tropical location right now, the beach side over there. Lucky son of a gun. Fresh, how you doing, buddy? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Seth. Haps, I'm doing great. We're on December 26th here. Big news breaking from the school up north.
Huge news out of Ann Arbor.
They hired Santa Claus. I'm not going to say he's a Michigan man, but I will do internet scopes. And on Instagram, he only follows a couple women, his daughter and his wife, and he hasn't used his Instagram in 10 years apparently. So that's a start. It's a positive direction right there for Michigan football. I mean, you really can't get much worse, but they have a lot of cleaning to do, and Kyle Whittingham's going to do a great job there. Even if it only for 3 to 5 years, he will reset them and finally give them some respectable leadership that they haven't had since Lloyd Carr.
I think Kyle Whittingham hiring them for the Wolverines is the best possible scenario coming out of Harbaugh, Stallions, Sherrone Moore.
I mean,
all of the possible
11
scandals.
coaches that got arrested or had scandals during the Harbaugh era.
Right. And I think about our time here on this podcast here, Fresh, and over the years, what our thoughts have been about the Utah Ute program. And what we have said for years is, could you imagine how good of a coach Kyle Whittingham would be if you gave him the resources of a big name school? Well, now the fun thing is we get to see that happen. We're going to get to see what he's going to be able to do with a school like Michigan, what he's going to be able to do with a guy like Bryce Underwood, what he's able to do with some of these kids that they have coming in that recruiting class. That Savion Hittner is going to be a monster of a running back. I love him coming out of high school here.
You know, the funny part,
I'm super curious how Michigan handles this whole transition.
Well, I mean, I think it's just going to be a discipline, a line of scrimmage. They're going to play, defense. Obviously, Wink Martindale shouldn't leave. There's stories like, there's one story I saw about Sherrone Moore was like, he walked in the office and he overheard the other assistant coaches talking trash about him because he had no clue what he was doing. And apparently, Sherrone Moore then burst into tears that you don't understand the pressure. Dude, Wink Martindale coached the NFL. He understands the pressure. Get out of here. People say Harbaugh was born on third base. Sherrone Moore was born on third base halfway to home. There's no pressure. You created all this entire disaster for yourself by not being a great offensive coach and being a terrible human being off the field. So Wink Martindale's probably like, thank you. This is fantastic. You know what? I'll stay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work. Me and Kyle Whittingham will, defense was never the issue in Michigan. The talent played great. Mm-hmm. The offense definitely fell off. And it really wasn't, I mean, they never had a passing game outside of Wholesome Loveland. Like it was pretty run first, run second, run third, run fourth, run fifth, and throw one, the seventh time and then repeat. This is going to be a refresh. Kyle Whittingham's been proven. He's done it at Utah. The more resources at Michigan. And there's another funny part where Lincoln Riley, people say that Lincoln Riley, took USC and left the Pac-12 and got away from Utah because Utah beat him and prevented him from making the playoff. Well, hey, you run from trouble finds you, and he's now in the Big Ten. And Lincoln Riley's looking over at Michigan. It's like, dude, I just dodged Notre Dame, and I'm getting Kyle Whittingham at Michigan. This is going to be a fierce setting for him, and the ripple effect that continues.
Yeah, and to me, Fresh, the key question is who's going to be the offensive coordinator. Because I went back and Urban Meyer, as much as, Urban Meyer comes with his own scandals, Urban Meyer does refer to him as one of the best defensive coaches he's ever worked with. And he also says that he is one of the best defensive minds that has ever been in college football. And that Urban credits him quite a bit for his development of offensive play calling and offensive systems because Kyle Whittingham was that perfect assistant coach. He was the perfect assistant coach to be the sounding board saying, hey, I'm going to try to do this. What are you going to try to counter with it and make me a better person? I've had the utmost respect for Kyle Whittingham ever since, what he's done at Utah, ever since we saw like him really take a program like Utah and put them onto the national stage. It's been impressive. The only question I have that will follow up is who's going to be the OC? What kind of offense are they going to run? Are you going to completely change, or is it going to go, are we going to see something like similar to the Utah system, how they relied on the tight end so heavily, how the run game was really strong? You had Dalton Kincaid and the other name's escaping me, but both of them are in the league and both of them playing at very high level.
I think his offense is going to be what works best with the ability that you can recruit at Utah, they could recruit. They knew they had to run. They weren't going to get a big
Hmm.
time passer. But with Bryce Underwood, you've got to now fit his needs if you want to keep him around. His goal is to go there and get the NFL and be a prolific quarterback. So you're going to have to find ways to actually get legit receivers and somewhat of a passing game, because that offense for Michigan is very hand behind the back, run first, run second, like I mentioned before. And I will say, NFL wise, the running backs that have come through there haven't really had much success in the NFL. So Loveland had, one good, I mean, he's an for the Bears. He had the one good catch to beat the Bengals, but he hasn't been this other, Brock Bowers, you know, dominant kind of tight end out of college. They don't really have receivers that are going to be dominant. They have the last receiver that off the top of my head that I can say was actually legit was Braylon Edwards. And that's been, many moons ago. So this offense needs to evolve. And as great as it was, yeah, you were tough and you beat Ohio State 2 years ago, and you capped off those 4 straight years. But we saw it pretty evident this past, fall. That offense is not going to. The only way they're winning is if they play ahead. They have to have some sort of flexibility in the offense where there's some sort of
Hmm.
passing game, some sort of dual threat opportunity where you have some balance. The modern game is that way. You know, this is not 1943 where you can, 13 personnel, run the ball, and never attempt to pass. They have to be able to evolve that passing game and have a little more, not a rich rod, 'cause that obviously was a failure. Be with your identity, but you have to have some sort of vertical passing game in that Michigan offense going forward. I expect, there's not going to be any lack of resources for recruiting or NIL. You're gonna have the opportunity to recruit at a high level. You just need to be able to make that fit. And right now, you're seeing the recruiting landscape. Every kid coming out of high school wants to be in some sort of pass focused offense or have some sort of opportunity to flash their skills. And if you don't have a passing game, it's a match with a running game and vice versa. It's going to cost you in the recruiting trail, and it's going to cost you, and you're going to have to score some points. You can't win game 10-0 anymore. And the offensive coordinator having some sort of NFL pedigree or at least some progressive thought process is going to be huge for Kyle Whittingham to evolve. We saw the past few years that Utah offense was okay, and then when they went and they played in a bigger bowl game, if the defense wasn't humming early, they were in trouble. If they weren't forcing turnovers, they were in trouble. They need to have some sort of balance going forward. I think Kyle Whittingham is smart to know that he's got to find someone who's going to have a little more pop to help that offense thrive.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Well, let's move from the coaching staff here. Let's talk about some actual bowl games that are going on. This game is going to happen at 5:30 p.m. on December 30th in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the Music City Bowl. It is the Tennessee Volunteers versus the Illinois Fighting Illini. Both these teams had much higher expectations, underachieved to the expectations that we kind of placed on them in the preseason games, in the preseason polls here. Both of them had a fairly decent year. What do you see with this one? Who needs this game more out of the two of them going in? Both teams 8-4 on the year.
I think Josh Heupel and the Volunteers need this win more than Illinois. I think Illinois knows they've done a great job under Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema can recruit. Tennessee needs this. Their fans need it because they think that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. An 8-5 season, I don't care what you have. There's not much offensive future right now. They have some receivers there, but the transfer portal they might hit in January 2nd. I mean, here's who he is. They've already seen, this offense has not thrived the past few seasons under Nico and under him. It's been a run first approach and not exactly what Josh Heupel preaches of, pass happy, using every inch. So Vols need to come out because people are going to start saying NL is great and all. I'm going to get paid, but if we're not winning or I'm not getting playing time, I'll get my one check and I'll leave. They're all 1 year contracts. So, I mean, this is going to be a big time for Josh Heupel to show that he can now evolve and take the next step. He's flashed in the pan since he arrived, and you sort of see a downward trend. Momentum starting to fade. You can't win the big one. If you can't win this game basically in a home environment in Nashville after losing to Vandy, the pitchforks are going to start coming out because getting to the playoff and getting embarrassed, getting to the Orange Bowl a couple of years ago, we almost beat Georgia t-shirts and we beat Alabama once or twice. That's going to fade real quick. You've got to come out here and just get to 9 wins, keep the momentum and sort of shake off that loss to Vanderbilt because right now, Tennessee athletics, you lost your baseball coach. Basketball will never make a Final Four. They're kind of like, they know who they are. Football is the last bastion, and they're still sitting in mediocrity. So it is what it is. Illinois, they're hitting what the achievements of being competitive, being in a great spot. Bielema, he understands where he is in the Big Ten, but Josh Heupel's got to do it, or he'll be the next team. Be the next name on that. Maybe it's time for me to leave before I get fired mentality.
Yeah. I think this game is important to Illinois. And I also think this game is very important to the Big Ten because Illinois is in that group with USC, with Iowa, and the Fighting Illini here that are in that tier 2, just below the tier 1 part of the Big Ten. And we could have a conversation about the gap in between tier 1 and tier 2. But what you need to be able to do and again, this is optics in the whole grand scheme of thing of SEC versus Big Ten and all those pieces. Illinois needs another win against an SEC team. Last year they went in South Carolina. That game was real chippy, all the way to the part where Bielema and Shane Beamer got into it at the end of the game. I think Illinois is going to take this game very seriously.
If that Illinois team shows up,
and really wants to hit someone in the mouth, then I think it could be a big time win for the Illini to go, well, we got to 9 wins. We're 9-4. But I agree with you, everything you said about Heupel, because I almost get to the point and I've been accused at times of being Josh Heupel apologist. And I am a big fan of him. I think he's a good person, good human being. But I'll say to everyone out there, I feel like Tennessee is getting to that point where we almost always almost win. Like, you'll beat teams that are below you in talent level, but are you winning the big name games? And I know people will say these are meaningless bowl games. This Music City Bowl is not meaningless to either one of these two teams. It could definitely be either a statement to end your season or a statement, going into next year saying, hey, look at us.
And I will, in the end, all of you watching, you might be entitled to compensation because there's going to be a lot of orange on your TV. So, wear sunglasses, don't stare at the TV, be mindful of that eyesight because it's going to be painful with all that orange on television.
Yeah. All right, Fresh, let's go to the Alamo Bowl, the Valero Alamo Bowl. This is USC at 9-3 facing the TCU Horned Frogs at 8-4. Right now, at time of record, USC is a 6.5 point favorite in this game. TCU's quarterback, Josh Hoover, has jumped into the transfer portal. He will not play in this game. USC has a fair decent amount of opt-outs in this game. The big one is Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, the two wide receivers for USC. They're going to be out. And again, quite a few guys on the defensive side of the football as well. I'm hoping USC can find some offense in this game. But again, this could be another big game for TCU to say, hey, take a look at us, even though they're going to be playing with, I think it's going to be Ken Seals or Joseph Manjack the fourth, or I think he's a wide receiver. But
well, first off, I'm surprised USC isn't opted out of this game after opting out of the Notre Dame rivalry. They don't want those tough games, to really impact their season. In the end, I think USC, they're going to come out here and take care of business with TCU. TCU was really just a quarterback, Josh Hoover, the man. And without him under center for this ball game, I think it's going to be very, very tough for them to operate their same level of explosiveness on the offensive side. There's enough receivers for USC. They'll be able to fill the gaps. Trojans win, but Lincoln Riley, the clock is ticking on you being successful. And I wouldn't be shocked if he has one more year before he thinks he needs to run before he gets fired because he's done a lot of talking. He made the big move, and he has not backed it up for USC in the Big Ten.
Is the Alamo Bowl for USC, is there a possibility that they could get Florida vibes? If they win this game, they go to 10-3 on the year. They'll look back, they'll say, our three losses, who they were to. Could you possibly see them being like that? How we kind of went into 2025 looking at Florida, saying, hey, there's talent there. And again, Billy Napier and Florida just fell flat on their face. Almost have the same feeling behind it going into 26.
I was thinking the same about the South Carolina, Florida, LSU, or in Illinois vibe, where we all came in to see, or even Penn State. Like all these guys are returning. The Clemson vibe, like they have so much talent, they should be really, really good, and then they just completely collapse. This is actually a proponent for we shouldn't even do a preseason ranking because it really, with all the transfer portal and everything else like that, all the expectations coming off, nobody even knows. And I think USC is setting themselves up for a major step back in 2026 because the offense, they have receivers, but they're not going to have the two that held them all together. And the defense, I think it was a 1-year spurt, and Maeva can't hold them all together forever.
Right. All right, Fresh, let's go to the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. I've never had citrus-flavored Cheez-Its, so that'll be a unique one here. Yeah, I don't want to either. It kind of sounds kind of gross. But the Wolverines, they're going to face off the Longhorns. Both are 9-3 in this game. Spread right now is 8.5 for Texas. But Texas has had, I'm looking at the list right now. I think I'm up to 9 or 10 players who have opted out of this game for the Longhorns. A big one, CJ Baxter opting out in that one. Gibson, and then Anthony Hill Jr. opting out. That doesn't shock me a ton with that he's opting out because he's going to the NFL.
I mean, the biggest thing is 4 running backs who either opted out or put themselves in the portal. Who's going to get the football? Like Archie's going to do it all by himself at this point. What I want to see is I want to see the Texas offense because Sark, he fires defensive coordinator, hires Will Muschamp to become the new DC, bring him back to Texas. The defense was never the problem. The defense was never the problem. The offense has been very Jekyll and Hyde all year.
Right.
And Sark doesn't want to turn that over. So it's more of like an ego thing. I want to see how this offense shows up versus Michigan defense. And will these Michigan players who've been through all this nonsense actually play up a little bit and you have some juice now that Whittingham is there and Sherrod Moore, who it's funny enough, a lot of them thought it was a joke anywhere, making fun of him and his relations behind the scenes. They all knew about it apparently. So how do they have a little extra juice in their step? Trying to pick up the season and pick up the pieces. I still think Texas wins. I think they win going away. Arch is going to they're going to try to showcase him as much as possible. But Wink Martindale and the defense are going to have some wrinkles for him early. But I think Texas is just going to have too much in the back end, and that defense, even with losing Anthony Hill, will have talent to shut down Bryce Underwood and that high school wing tee offense that they have there in Ann Arbor.
It'll be interesting here, Fresh, because I did not know that Wisner had been jumped into the portal. I see that just happened this morning.
As of today.
Yeah. So that's a huge. I think that's a huge loss for Texas. Again, I don't know. I don't know if Texas is going to take this game seriously, and I think both of these teams would love to say that we got to double-digit wins, even though neither team achieved their ultimate goal of the season, especially doing some damage in their respective conference. I think we need it really is the conversation of which quarterback is going to play better, which one is going to be able to say, like both these kids came into hyped up. Arch, everyone's saying preseason Heisman favorite. We weren't really that high on that kid, but everyone else was saying it. And then Bryce Underwood, the most talented freshman ever to enter into college football here. He didn't produce to those expectations. So which one of these fan bases, and maybe we get one of those classic games where these two quarterbacks duel it out with each other. They go touchdown for touchdown, pass for pass, the whole 9 yards, and both programs can walk out saying, man, we have a really great quarterback going into 2020, feel really good about ourselves. I think that's going to be the key question to watch. I'm going to go Longhorns as well because I think there's been just way too many distractions in Ann Arbor. Whittingham does help a lot of this. I think it gives them some stability. But again, going into this bowl game, being able to focus in on it. I think Texas is just more focused than everyone else. Texas is going to want to blow out the Wolverines and say, hey, we should have been in the conversation more for the college football playoff.
But you know what? We do have to applaud these two teams, just like some others, decided not to opt out of a bowl game. They actually decided to participate, so they are still one step ahead of Notre Dame.
That's very true. Both these programs have that they can hold over the Irish there. Fresh. All right, let's just throw this one out here. Iowa, Vandy.
That one,
Diego Pavia's last dance.
Well,
I think so too.
I mean, last dance, or he might. I think that was going to be fun because Iowa is going to come in. They are going to be very professional and focused. Pavia, it was a good story last year, and I think the way he acted after the Heisman ceremony, being a little punk, soured a lot of people. And coming into it, I think a lot of people are actually hoping he loses this game. If this was
really?
Like 2 months ago, like, oh, it's a great story. Comes from New Mexico State, JUCO kid. But the whole annex about bleep the voters and Indiana sucks and running around to clubs and his mom in the stands and his brother being arrested for drunken disorderly conduct after the last game of the year. Just it's a crazy train. Literally, it's a crazy train. And I'm at the point where Clark Lee, you're trying to you need to reel him in, but you can't. He's gotten so big that he is now the wave of the Pavia has become so profound. It's down the road, and I think it's going to sour people on Vanderbilt football. It's like, oh, we're so great. Jared Curtis is there. Jared Curtis is not the same quarterback. This is not a pass first football team. This is a Pavia run around and make things happen kind of, poor man's Johnny Manziel.
Mhm.
Jared Curtis, they're going to expect him to come in and save the team like Pavia did. It's not going to happen. You need receivers. He wants to be in a pro offense. It's not a pro offense. This is the last swan song, but I think I was going to give him, everything and then some, and he's going to have to he's going to get humbled pretty quickly. Talent wise, Vanderbilt's more talented offense. Excuse me. But I think the mindset is Iowa's going to come in with no one talking about, and they're going to be much more physical at the line of scrimmage. They're going to make this a much bigger deal. Personally, I want Vanderbilt to lose, but I think they will win in the very end. But Iowa's going to make them earn it. This will be an ugly battle. And I think Vanderbilt thinks they're going to walk in and have this sort of handed to him. Pavia's going to probably stroll in there with some lights and some, boombox. He's going to get punched in the mouth by the Hawkeyes. So that'll be the one to be really watching at noon on New Year's Eve. Really get your day going and sort of cap 2026.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this because as of right now, the list I'm going off of doesn't show anyone for the Hawkeyes opting out right now. I don't see anyone. I haven't seen anyone. And I see the tight end for Vandy is opted out there because he's going probably into the NFL draft. I think he's going to be the number one tight end coming up for this draft. This would not shock me if Iowa wins this football game. It's not going to shock me at all because I think that Iowa is going to, and Kirk Ferentz is going to take great pleasure into like being the defense that shuts up Diego Pavia and being able to say like, hey, this kid, he ran his mouth and we were just workmanlike. We put our nose to the grindstone. We studied film. We found his flaws and we exposed him. We were the ones that exposed him. I think Iowa wins this football game for some weird reason. I think he's ticked off so many people.
He has. And that's where I think you go back to the SEC Big Ten thing where in the past, like SEC be like, oh, it's a great chance for the SEC to beat Iowa. Iowa's not great in the bowl game. But the way he's been acting lately, really, go out there and get that kid's butt whooped. Go Hawkeyes, go take care of business. Like end this thing, end this kid's career. It's got annoying. I'm tired of seeing Theo Vaughn walk around and his mom on the sideline. It's a circus, and the circus needs to end, and it needs to end in dramatic fashion on New Year's Eve.
Right. I think he is the most polarizing figure since Johnny Manziel. Like people forget like how polarizing Johnny Manziel was, and we all loved him. Watching him in college was phenomenal. And without Manziel, I don't think A&M is ever where they were like this year without like Johnny Mania. At the same time, too, there was a large, and I mean a large contingency that wanted to see Manziel fall on his face and get smacked around. And when he was drafted and just his NFL career just flaming out in glorious fashion, there's so many people who were just waiting for him to get that. To take that victory lap of saying, like, we told you this kid was not going to be good.
Yeah, that game's going to be fun. Like, this is going to be a must-watch game, and people will be locking in on it. And I expect a lot of fireworks, I expect a lot of pads to be pumping too. You'll be like, all right, it's a bowl game, but there's going to be some hitting going on. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, Fresh, real quick before we wrap up here. Arizona State, Duke. Arizona State, again, 8-4 year, and we went back to our conversation about expectations and all of those things with it. They're coming off the playoff experience. We weren't ever expecting Arizona State to, make it back into the playoff, especially with Texas Tech coming up. But again, if I would have told you at the beginning of the year that Duke was going to be 8-5 on the season already, most people, and win the ACC title, you would be like, oh my gosh, like what in the world happened in the ACC? So again, if you're a Duke Blue Devil fan, you're thinking, hey, this is one of the best years we've had in college football in a long time. And that's including the Mike Elko Riley Leonard year. This is impressive.
With no Sam Levitt for Arizona State, even though Kenny Dillingham is staying and got the extension, give me Duke, give me Darian Mensah, give me the ACC champions, Duke Blue Devils in football. I just think they have a vibe, and we've seen Arizona State without Sam Levitt, and we've seen them with them. They're two different football teams. Give me the Duke Blue Devils and the ACC champs to get their 9 wins, and keep building the Manny Diaz there in Durham.
Hey, real quick, did Darian Mensah, did he jump into the portal?
Not that I know of. I know he arrived from Tulane before the season of the portal, but nowadays, who knows? I have no clue. We'll see.
Right. Yeah, I'm checking real quick because if Duke can keep that kid around, he has been absolutely fantastic for the Blue Devils at times. I mean, is he going to be an elite level quarterback? No, probably not. But is he going to be really, really good? Yeah, absolutely. The kid's going to be really good. perfect for a program like Duke. I'm with you, Fresh. Give me the Duke Blue Devils to get to 9 wins on the season right now. This is going to be an entertaining game to watch because I think Arizona State's still going to play hard, but they've had too many kids leave and opt out, and I just don't think that they're going to be able to be successful from there.
Yeah, Ken Scadwell is not saving them this time.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. Hey, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because we still have to talk about the college football playoffs. We're going to have the second round coming at you later on this week. So make sure you're locked in with us and checking us out along the way. The Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of Spinnable Sports, so make sure you're checking out Spinnable Sports. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. And make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on social media. Engage with us, and we'll be bringing you more content all year long, so lock in for the long haul.
Almost time for the playoff to keep going back and forth. Top 4 seeds get to take the field, and maybe this year all 4 will actually win, or at least a couple of them. But until then, we'll come to preview next time. Stick with us at IR Confidence Pod on Twitter, X, at Spinnable Sports YouTube channel, at SpinnableSports.com. And until next time, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all. Happy New Year.